Let me address some psychological paradoxes of happiness. This is what you feel inside your soul. Of course, you know what a paradox is. A kid in India once asked me, Uncle, do you know what a paradox is? And by the time I came up with an answer that was sophisticated, he said in his own simple, subtle, childish humor way, a paradox is a pair of doctors. I presume the pair of doctors were romancing each other, and then they really experienced a paradox of happiness. But let me give you three paradoxes, psychological paradoxes of happiness. A paradox is simply a consequence of a statement which invalidates the statement, a consequence of a premise. Let me give you an example. If I were to say this statement is false, it's a paradox. If it's true, it's false. If it's false, it is true. Or if I were to ask a question like this, is the answer to this question no? If you answer yes, it's no. And if you answer no, it's yes. Now, there are many kinds of paradoxes: philosophical, psychological, mathematical, legal, ethical paradoxes. But I'm talking about the paradox of happiness. Let me give you three. The first one is the paradox of making the subject of happiness the object of happiness. You and I are the subjects of happiness. That is, we feel happiness. But if we start turning ourselves into the object of happiness, then we have a problem. It's called egocentrism or me-centrism or self-centrism. If I am the object of my happiness, I start using others to be the sources of my happiness. And I pursue happiness at their expense, which is not very helpful to them. For example, the pursuit of happiness is not the same as a right to happiness. If you think happiness is a right, then the people who are stronger and richer and mightier are the ones who are going to succeed in happiness, which we already found out is not so, and the rest of us will be not so happy with the fact that they are stronger and richer and mightier and therefore having happiness. But what is equal is that everybody has the right to pursue happiness. If you start looking at happiness as the object, that's okay. But if you look at yourself as the object, then you're a problem. You start quantifying what is not measurable, which of course what everybody tries to do. There are some academic researchers today who pursue affective neuroscience, or what may be called PET scan, positron emission tomography, in order to identify how the blood flow to the brain is connected to your feelings. And they think there's some way by which we can connect the two. But it results in a category confusion. It starts evaluating a quality by quantity measurements and fall into a paradox. The country of Bhutan actually has a happiness commissioner. English philosopher Jeremy Bentham talked about the philosophic calculator, and they said, why should we just have a gross national product? Why don't we have gross national happiness? And so they've put posters all across the small nation to find how people are happy or unhappy, and try to make policies in order to help people become happy. And as they go through it, they find out that they can more easily evaluate and quantify gross national unhappiness than quantify gross personal happiness. Because that's the nature of happiness, a psychological paradox. There's a second paradox to happiness. Psychological paradox of turning and making the result our purpose. Happiness needs to be the result of our lives, not the purpose of our lives. Eric Hoffer, the great social philosopher, said, one of the chief sources of unhappiness is the pursuit of happiness, which tells us that happiness can only be approached indirectly. You can't approach happiness directly and try to be happy. You become unhappy trying to become happy. And some of you have felt that already. It's like spontaneity. You cannot try hard to be spontaneous. Or it is like trying to forget yourself. You have to remember yourself in order to forget yourself. For others who want to give up all desire, and they have to have an ardent desire to give up all desire, this is the same way with happiness. You approach happiness indirectly and you'll have it. If you make it the purpose of your life, you won't have it. Let happiness be the result of all that you do, but not the purpose of your life.